More from Chad Groening.
On Tuesday, a roadside bomb detonated, killing 3 American soldiers in Ghazni province in eastern Afghanistan. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack. And this past Saturday, a U.S. Army Ranger was killed during a firefight with al-Qaeda terrorists in the Nimruz province. Bob McGinnis is a senior fellow for national security at the Family Research Council and author of Alliance of Evil.
I don't see any national interest served by being in Afghanistan with the investment that we continue to make. Clearly what we've been doing is trying to remake a 14th century country into a country that can survive in a very hostile environment with Iran on the west, Pakistan in the south, and China to the north and east.
McGinnis says at some point you have to cut your losses, pick up your marbles, and go home.
I don't think if we were to stay there 100 years more that things would necessarily improve in our way of looking at it. So I see no national interest served, and I've been saying this for many, many years. And as a result, I think that for us to continue to pour our blood and treasure into that country is a mistake at the strategic level.
I'm Chad Groening.
An afternoon celebrating the love God has given to a young couple in Northern California was a welcome dose of normal for a pastor whose church is scattered after the Camp Fire destroyed his town. Steve Jordahl checks in with Pastor Tim Bolin.
He'd almost forgotten what it was like to be a normal pastor. But 2 Saturdays ago, a week after he and his family fled the firestorm that swallowed up Paradise, California, Pastor Tim Bolin performed a wedding.
It was fantastic. It was nothing about the fire. It was all about that couple and their love for Jesus and love for each other. And it was just a breath of fresh air.
Brian and Morgan Goba tied the knot. Bolin said the bride wore white, although she came close to having to marry in the clothes she had on her back when she escaped the flames.
Luckily, they saw the fire coming. First thing they grabbed from the house was her wedding dress and all the wedding stuff, and got out, and the house did burn down.
As for what normal will look like for his church looking forward, Bolin says it's too early to tell.
What I'm hearing is young families really feel like, yes, let's come back. Let's do this. But some of our older seniors, they just don't have it in them, which breaks my heart because they're some dear friends.
He says he'll go where God sends him, but it's hard not to get discouraged.
You know, I've been up here 5 times now, and I told my wife last night, I said, I don't want to come up again. At first, I was in hopes that let's rebuild this town, and now every time I come up, I just see more and more and more devastation.
Officials say it could be May or later before people will even be allowed to go back and start rebuilding. I'm Steve Jordahl.
And sales of new homes plummeted 8.9% in October as the number of newly built unsold homes sitting on the market climbed to the highest level since 2009. American Family News is online at onenewsnow.com. And download the One News Now mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
I was on my way to work, drinking, and I passed out. Next thing I know, I was in the hospital. That's what brought me to Teen Challenge. God got my attention, and I'm here. I know that I'm a child of God, and I'm loving every bit of it.
If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, Adult to Teen Challenge can help. There are centers across the country, and you can find the one nearest you at 855-END-ADDICTION or at teenchallengeusa.com. This is Urban Family Talk.
She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Well, Congress has not negotiated in good faith for many years on immigration. They failed to do their job, and I think it's a large part of how the president got elected and why this continues to be a big issue.
I think most Democrats and Republicans believe in border security. They have a different way of coming at it.
That's a question Chuck Schumer is going to have to ask. You know, he was in that boat a few years ago, and it didn't work well for Chuck Schumer during the Schumer shutdown. But ultimately, there's an opportunity for an agreement to be reached here. And it's all about border security, and $5 billion is the number.
If there's any shutdown, it's on President Trump's back. The Republicans are in control of the presidency, the House, and the Senate. A shutdown is on their back.
The plan is we've got to get $5 billion for the wall. And, we're in a situation now where we've actually provided funding for our military. We've provided funding for labor and HHS in the same appropriations bill. That's been completed. That's been signed. And the president's been clear that he's willing to shut down the government if we don't get this $5 billion.
And now, Stacey Washington.
Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here today at the Stacey on the Right Show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. We are excited. We have a fantastic show for you. We're going to be speaking with Carmine Sabia. He is the editor over at The Federalist, and he's going to be chatting with us. We're going to be talking a little bit about, current events, namely the caravan, the wall, et cetera, and a few other choice topics we're going to have with him. We'll be taking your calls this hour. Please do take a note of the number. It's 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. And we'll be so happy to chat with you about news of the day, any topics you want to bring up. But right now, I want to get into our daily confession, which is Psalm 119, verses 1 through 10. Blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies and that seek him with the whole heart. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. You have commanded us to keep thy precepts diligently. Oh, that my ways were directed to keep your statutes. Then shall I not be ashamed when I have respect unto all thy commandments. I will praise thee with uprightness of heart. When I shall have learned thy righteous judgments, I will keep your statutes. Oh, forsake me not utterly. Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to your word. With my whole heart have I sought thee. Oh, let me not wander from your commandments. This is one of the fantastic, all Psalms are amazing and really great for our soul, but this is one of those, it gets you geared up for the fight. And it's a fight, yeah, but it's also just a daily walk, and that means sometimes you get a bit weary. Sometimes your feet hurt. Sometimes you're not sure, am I doing this thing right? When we address ourselves to what God has given us to do, we can be assured that we're walking in his way and that we're following his precepts. And that comes through Bible study and fellowshipping with other saints and talking about the goodness of the Lord and praising him for his goodness and looking for ways to see him speaking to us in his creation, because his creation sings out the glory of God. So we don't have to look far to see the love letters that God has left for us everywhere that we look, to speak to not only his creative glory and his awesome power, but his it's a finely tuned sense of caring that he has for us about every aspect of our lives that makes just being here on this earth. We just have to be so grateful for that, but even more so for being here in this particular portion of the earth where he is using America to advance the kingdom. And I know we have plenty of people here in this country who are fools, who say there is no God, but that doesn't take away from the truth. If I don't believe the sky is blue, or if I don't acknowledge the existence of many different species of trees, it doesn't make what I believe or acknowledge so. It just means that I'm uninformed. And so that is the same attitude that we have to take towards those who don't believe as we do. Not that they are our enemy per se, but that we should be trying to bring them in, trying to disciple them into the kingdom. So now I want to turn to, this is such good stuff. And this is a book that was given to me. All of us received a copy of this book. It was complimentary, by Dr. Mark A. Beliles and Stephen K. McDowell. And the book is it's hard for me to describe it really. It's called America's Providential History. And it just has a little bit in here about Christ's teachings on politics and government. And I thought it was perfect for this psalm that I shared with you. And this is so important for us because oftentimes we believe the lies of the left and of those who really hate this country. They don't have to be politically affiliated. They just want to tear down the roots of what this country was founded on. And they'll tell you that, well, God has nothing to do with the founding of America. And while it's true this isn't a Christian nation per se, we don't have a universal mandate that you have to be a Christian in order to be an American. We do have a Judeo-Christian founding that it can't be erased. People can deny it, but it doesn't mean that they're correct. So I have these things here. It's Christ's teachings on politics and government. Now, there are no specific, like, do 1, then do 2, then do 3 in the Bible for what we should do to set up a godly civil government. But God deals in the Bible with the spirit or power of the government by giving certain principles and mandating that we set them up so that we do have a godly form that would follow. Internal liberty moves outward. So when I practice liberty for my own personal edification, for my own individual liberty, when I practice that well and teach it to those in my household and we all practice it well together, then that emanates outward. If many, many millions of Americans practice that same individual liberty and adherence to it, then that radiates outward. And it means that when we all have the same understanding of a thing, we can promote that thing together in unison in a very powerful way. So the Lord is sovereign in human history and government. We can't take God's influence out of human history. We can't take his influence out of government. And those that try to do so are practicing folly. Jesus, once speaking to Pilate, said, "You would have no authority over me unless it had been given to you from above." And this is found in John 19:11. So Jesus is asserting here that the civil authority is delegated and controlled by God. Paul also says in Romans 13:1, there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. So any person, be they Democrat or Republican, can be used by God to accomplish his purposes. The Bible also says that God turns the head of the ruler whichever way it would go. So that's where we come in and cooperate with that through prayer. If we are not praying for those who are electing authority over us, we're ignoring the fact that God is in control of them. And even when they're practicing wrongdoing, God can turn those actions out for our good. And we have to be praying for that. We have to participate in this process through prayer. Second, the individual has inherent value because he is made in the image of God. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's the reason why we fight so hard to stop the practice of taxpayer-funded abortion. It's the reason why we want to have a pro-life ethic that emanates outward from our churches, our homes, our public schools, our private schools, our secular schools, our independent schools, that they call themselves, charter schools, you name it. We want everyone to have the same idea that every life is of value, every life matters, and that when you take away from the value of one life, you actually damage the value of all of the lives, because once that begins to take root, you see that the what emanates out from that. People don't think that other people have value, and so they're fine with murdering, raping, kidnapping, et cetera, et cetera. And that emanates out from this idea that certain people deserve to live and certain people don't. And it doesn't matter what happens to them. And it's better for them to be aborted. This idea on the left that some people are just better off aborted because it's better to be dead than to be poor, or to be born into a family that's not the proper structure, even while they say there is no proper family structure. All of these things go against God's will for us, his good natural order, and we have to fight them. So the individual has inherent value. And you can find out more about that in Matthew 22:17 through 21. Number 3, government exists to serve the common good of every individual. Notice it says every individual, not just the individuals who are wealthy or just the individuals who need government assistance. Government exists to help only the poor. None of those things are accurate. Government exists to serve the common good of every individual. And by common, we mean the good that first does no harm to the other individuals. So in an effort to try to be, we're the good people, we care about the poor, we want to elevate poor people and help them out of their situation. Many, many people on the left believe that others need to be hurt, and that it is good to wish for others to be hurt in order to make sure that certain individuals who are already in a sad state, a state of poverty, can be helped, all the while ignoring the fact that government help doesn't seem to alleviate poverty. We do not have less poverty than we had before we started implementing government programs that mandate that we snatch hard-earned money from some to give to others. That's not the way to end poverty. So Matthew 20:25 through 28 in context speaks to a broader view of what Jesus meant when he said, Jesus called them to himself. You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them, but it is not so among you. Whoever wishes to become great, a governor, New King James says a governor, NIV says a ruler, among you shall be your servant. So Jesus is making reference to civil authorities, these people that we elect over us, and is declaring that they are to be public servants. So they're not to be our betters. They're not to be, taken around in private vehicles and for us to kowtow and bow to them. They're not to get into public service in order to enrich themselves and to make better, generational decisions for their families and to leave behind generational wealth. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But that is not the point of public service. And when we get to a place where public servants are now demanding that they need dormitories, taxpayer funded, in addition to their $170,000 a year in pay, we've gotten away from this concept. Jesus speaks to civil authorities and declares that they are to be public servants. The purpose of civil government is to serve the people. It is radically opposed to what most governments around the world in developing nations, where they have this idea that rulers dominate the people. And really that's been the prevailing thought up until the modern era and the advent of America and other countries kind of imitating us by having constitutions of their own. The civil government is the servant of man, and that idea comes directly from the Bible. It is a Christian concept. And this is just another little nail hammer, meet up right there. Hear the pounding sound of the truth that you cannot strip Christianity from the founding of this country. Everything that you see coming out of our founding that is good and lasting stems from the Judeo-Christian influence of the Christian Bible. There is no stripping it away. So 4, civil government and the church have separate jurisdictions. While God cannot be separated from government, the Bible does speak of limits of jurisdiction of the state and the church. Jesus taught that we are to render to Caesar, the state, the things that are Caesar's, and to God, the things that are God's. And you can find that in Matthew 22:17 through 21. So we've already seen that one thing that belongs to the state and not the church is the use of the sword to protect the citizenry. The government is charged with protecting the homeland, securing the border, and maintaining the national defense, not the church. Some things that belong to God and not the state include the worship of God, our children, our own consciences, our lives. In these matters, the state has no authority and should not interfere. These 3 views of the church-state issue exist today and can be summed up by the pagan view, which is that the state is greater than man and the state is greater than church. Pagans think that the state it's basically God to them. It's everything. Then you have the modern Christian view that God is over the church and state is over the state. But the biblical view is more complex and makes a lot more sense. And it is that God is at the top. And then you have man over each of the 3 spheres. And the first sphere that man reigns over is the home. Man reigns over the church. And thirdly, man reigns over the state, which means that my little favorite saying about the citizen, the office of citizen being the highest office in the land, is absolutely accurate. As people left here to tend the garden by God, we are mandated to rule over our homes, rule over the proper administration of the church, and to be the body, and to rule over the state. So we have to order things properly if we want to see things work properly. We're going to delve into this some more over the next few weeks as I work my way through this piece. It's been fantastic. Right now, we're going to go to the break. When we get back, we will have Carmine Sabia. Stay there.
Are you still stuck on the healthcare roller coaster? Still paying those high premiums? And strapped into huge deductibles? Not knowing what's around the next turn? Well, then let me tell you about a sound, sensible healthcare choice that really is affordable. It's MediShare, the healthcare sharing solution people like you have been trusting in for more than 25 years. MediShare members report saving around $500 a month on their healthcare costs, and they never pay for things they don't believe in. Time to say goodbye to that healthcare roller coaster and say hello to MediShare.
Call *star 345 to find out how much you can save on your health care. MediShare. Call *star 345. Message and data rates may apply. That's *star 345.
Hi, I'm Crawford Loritz with a Legacy Moment. Some time ago, I was invited to speak at an evangelistic outreach. Those organizing the event were doing an outstanding job making sure unbelievers would attend. I was very excited at such a wonderful opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Then they said something that disturbed me. They said, Crawford, we want you to share the gospel and be very clear about the gospel message, but we want you to dwell on the benefits of knowing Christ, the positive stuff, and not to talk about the sufferings of Christ. My heart was saddened, and not because I'm against talking about the benefits of knowing Christ. Our message is indeed positive. Jesus gives joy. He gives forgiveness. He gives hope and a sense of direction. But you cannot experience the benefits of Christ without understanding the cross of Christ. His sufferings are a prerequisite to experiencing his blessing. Listen to what Jesus said himself about his death. In John chapter 12, verses 32 and 33, Jesus says, "And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." John goes on to explain this in verse 33. He said this is to show by what kind of death he was going to die. In other words, Jesus says, the means by which I'll draw people to myself is not by my passing out information about how good it is to follow me. No, what will draw people to me will be my suffering. Calvary is good news. Here's what I want you to remember today. There's nothing wrong with finding an approach that is winsome, that identifies where people are and pulls them to where they need to be. But what really attracts people, what really is attractive from God's point of view, is the pull of the cross.
Join Crawford Loritz tomorrow for another Legacy Moment.
You can download episodes of Stacy on the Right from the podcast page on AFR.net or UrbanFamilyTalk.com. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
We were able to get $1.5 billion of new funding for border wall in this year's budget. Obviously, we want more. The president's asked for $5 billion. I'd like to see us get there. We've had a number of bills to try to solve that problem. Let me make this point about the end of the year funding for the Department of Homeland Security. When people talk about a government shutdown, they try to use it in a pejorative term to try to scare people. Over 70% of the United States government is fully funded until the end of next year's fiscal year, including the Department of Defense, which is critically important. In the past, you saw Obama use our troops as hostages to try to say, hey, the troops won't get paid unless you give me X, Y, or Z. We have now fully funded the entire Department of Defense, including giving a pay raise to our troops. That goes through September 30th of next year. So now all we're talking about is an important part of government, but it's less than 30%, including the Department of Homeland Security. That's where the wall funding comes in. So there will be no widespread government shutdown. It's all about funding the Department of Homeland Security and building the wall.
And so that was Representative Scalise. He's talking about the $5 billion that they want for the wall, which to me is, again, we're talking ridiculously tiny numbers. They should be asking for the entire funding for the wall, all $26 billion in one fell swoop, and they should get it done in the lame duck session. But let's get some expert commentary on this. We have Carmine Sabia, Jr., managing editor of The Federalist, political commentator. Carmine, thank you for coming on today.
Hey, Stacey, thank you.
All right, talk to me. Why can't why can't Republicans act like Democrats in the lame duck and ram through something huge and impactful like 1/6 of the economy the way they did with Obamacare? Why can't we get the Republicans to do a pittance on a multi-trillion-dollar annual budget? We're talking about a pittance at $26 billion.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine, Stacey. No, I shouldn't say that. You're probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking, which is Republicans traditionally don't have the backbone for this. Democrats will go to the fire. Republicans are very shy of the fire. They avoid the fire. They want the easy road every time. And you're 100% right. We should be $5 billion. We should be talking about the $26 billion. To me, the $5 billion is an appeasement number. That's here's $5 billion, build some fence, you shut up.
There isn't.
You know what I'm saying? It's not the money we need.
But isn't this the best time to do it?
$26 billion in terms of the federal government is not a lot of money.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out why we wouldn't do it now, Carmine, because they're, number one, lame
Now's the
duck.
time.
Yeah. Number two, what better illustration as to why we need a wall? We have 5,000 or so troops kind of hanging out at the southern border right now, and I'm glad they're there. I'm not against them being there, but wouldn't it be better to have a firm structure there that you know, it's not dependent on who the president is, and to get the wall done since it's a campaign promise, and to just make it just get it done. And I understand the whole, you know, lily-livered, sweater vest wearing Republicans can't get anything done in the lame duck. But didn't they learn anything from Kavanaugh? If there's anything we've learned from Kavanaugh, it's that if you wear a sweater vest, it's fine. Just strap a Kevlar vest on top and get some stuff done.
Mm-hmm. Amen. But we're used to this, though, Stacey. They're not willing to fight. They're not willing to go to the trenches. You know, the problem is you're getting rid of your Jeff Flakes and your Corkers, but now you don't have the House. And you know, this is the time. But could you picture Flake voting for the wall? Just to spite the president, he wouldn't. The other thing about the wall, though, that concerns me is you build that wall, okay? From now until eternity, until it's done, Democrats are going to come on and they're going to campaign on the promise of, I'll tear down this wall. And, you know, that's going to be their campaign slogan, tear down this wall. And eventually somebody's going to do it, and they're going to tear down the wall after you spend $26 billion. Because, you know, when somebody made the point the other day, they're like, well, you said Democrats are interested in votes from these illegals, but illegal aliens can't vote. Okay, two answers to that question. One, I believe there's been a lot of illegal voting. Mm-hmm. But that aside, they come here, they have kids here, their kids now vote. How do you think their kids are going to vote? You know what I'm saying? If the Democrats are bringing you in, and they're welcoming you with open arms, those kids are going to vote Democrat. They're trying to make this a one-party country.
Right. Which is that would precipitate us becoming a third world country, because Democrats are already making California into a third world state here in America. And if you look at California, wildfires, natural disasters, utility companies operating with impunity, lobbyists in control of everything, and most importantly, environmentalists in charge of what trees can be cut down, what brush can be cleared. And you can say, well, we don't have wildfires in Missouri, Stacey. Yeah, but we do have ice storms, and we do have lots of other natural disasters that if lobbyists were in charge, we wouldn't have Amber and UE doing the work that they've done to keep us, in power. We have huge storms now. We don't lose power. Not 50,000 people. It might be a tiny little group like 12,000, 24,000 who lose power for a day or two at most.
Same thing in New Jersey.
Yeah. And why? Because we have people Missouri's not perfect. We got some issues. But at the very minimum, people know that if you have Americans living in Missouri and they're without power for 4 days, you're going to not get your next rate increase approved. You might have legislators lose their jobs from those districts where those people live. There's accountability here. There's none of that in California anymore, and Democrats don't care about whether or not that's here. Carmine, they just want to be in power.
And it gets worse when you look at Ocasio-Cortez. And I don't know if you saw, she came after me on Twitter the other day. And it's funny because all her little friends or her little followers, she owns you. She owns me by not answering my question.
Well, she can't really own you.
Side remark and avoided my question completely.
Okay, I'm not sure what was it about, because the listeners want to know what the tweets were about.
Off the top of my head. I asked her what Native American immigration laws the European settlers broke. And she said, how about murder? That's not an immigration law, and I don't think they had one in the books.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of a waste of time for us to debate. That's a trap that the left sets for us, where they want us to talk about what happened with the American Indians. That's settled history.
And I pointed that out to her, too, why it's stupid, because back then, the whole world was colonizing the whole world. It wasn't just happening here. It was happening everywhere. And my point was that Native Americans were enslaving, murdering, torturing, and wiping out complete tribes themselves. If they had the ability and the resources and the tools to go to Europe and do that to the Europeans, they would have.
They would have. Absolutely.
They didn't do it because they couldn't do it. And it's not that they're bad people. It's that that's what the world was back then.
And
to judge
it
anything
still
by
is in a way.
2008
I mean, look at what's happening in the Middle East. It still is that way in areas where there's anarchy and unsettled government structures. You see different groups vying for control and power. But the issue with her,
there's still a slave trade of Africans in the Middle East. So
absolutely.
nobody talks about. But back to my point about Ocasio-Cortez, though, what concerned me was I was reading tweets on her page. I like to do this from time to time because as a managing editor, you can get stories just by going to her Twitter page because she's a fountain of stupid quotes. And one of the things that I've read, I haven't read it a couple times because people are taking her seriously. And I know Democrats have said this before, but it seems to be now gaining steam. She wants, in this new Green Deal she's talking about, which is ridiculous, she wants a guaranteed federal job for everybody. Could you imagine? Could you imagine what that world would look like?
Yes.
In school.
Yes, I
dropped
can.
out in the 6th grade.
Oh, my
Don't
goodness.
worry about it. Federal job for you. And for life, because we can't fire federal workers.
It's absolutely ludicrous. And there's an even deeper problem because we have a lot of Americans right now living in, provisionally unaccredited school districts who are graduating from high school and they can't even read at the 8th grade level. They can't do math at the entry level of middle school. And those people do need jobs, but they need training and they need educational resources. And I would much rather see the government put some kind of effort towards funding private organizations like grants or what have you that you can apply for to get that work done, as opposed to just universal work, universal income. So we've only seen the post office improve once people started paying attention to the fact that they had huge unpaid pension liabilities and they weren't able to keep, delivering stamps, 49 cents, whatever. And I think the post office is fantastic. I do like to mail letters and see them get there in 4 days or less. It's wonderful. But they only began to care about their customer service when private organizations like FedEx and USPS came around and showed Americans what, real mail service looks like. Then they came up a bit. I guess my question about Ocasio-Cortez, and I'm not kidding around. I know you might laugh, but what exactly do we think she's going to do in Congress when she gets there? Because she thinks there are 3 parts to Congress, and she thinks that Congress.
She also thinks she's getting inaugurated, by the way.
Oh, does she? Oh, that's.
Oh, you didn't see that? Yeah, she thinks she's getting inaugurated. She thinks that's how this works.
It's not. And she went to Brown. I'm surprised because she actually went to what people consider to be a real college that costs real money.
And she believes she's going to sign legislation also.
Sign it?
Sign it. Yeah, into law. These are quotes that she's made.
I just don't know what she's going to do when she gets there. That's my question.
It's very hard to believe she went to Brown. I didn't know that. That's very hard to believe.
I thought she went to Brown. And please, if I'm incorrect, listeners forgive, but she went to a real college and graduated. So that means she went to high school and college, which is more than a lot of us Americans. There's only like 30+% of Americans in total who actually have college degrees. And I just think that's fantastic because look around this country, you see a lot of people who don't have advanced educations, who own businesses and are really killing it in this country. And it's a testimony to how wonderful our opportunities are here and how smart people really are when they graduate from high school, or maybe I should say they used to be, because Ocasio-Cortez is really calling into question a lot of things for us, isn't she?
For me, a lot of things. I'm really starting to question if this woman could be president of the United States someday. Are there enough stupid people that would have left her? Because I read her Twitter page, man, and the people behind her, they don't care what she says. They don't care that she has no answers to any questions. They don't have, it was me, it was Cardillo, it was a bunch of people asking her questions. She couldn't answer one of them, and people are like, yeah, she's the best. You just shake your head, and you're like, my God, these people are just like lemmings going off a cliff. Very scary.
All right, so let's talk. Scary. Let's pivot over and talk about. There's a ton, but I'm interested in the fact that the Border Patrol chief actually was on television the other day saying how not a single migrant had climbed over the new barriers that have been constructed. So my question is, Carmine, and I'm big into logic and facts, but I also just love the idea of a big, juicy, beautiful wall that the president has described. Even with the $5 billion, because it's a pipe dream to think they're going to do $26 billion like he asked for. But if they give him the $5 billion, what will he do? In your estimation, will he harden what he's already put down there and so kind of take it from temporary to permanent, the concertina wire, et cetera, the parts that he's shorn up so that you can't just walk over, because there were sections of the border where you couldn't drive over, but you could get out of your car and walk over into the United States, and apparently they closed those up. Is that what you see him doing with this money?
I do. I think that's what he would do with it. Yeah, because like you said, you've got to take what you can get. Getting $26 billion is not going to happen. I think he will get the $5 billion. I think Schumer's going to have to cave on that. He doesn't really have many cards to play anyway. We're going to probably have to give DACA for that $5 billion, and I think that's fair. I'm okay with DACA. I'm okay actually with the DACA kids getting legal status, not citizenship, but legal status.
Okay,
because it's not their fault.
Okay.
You disagree?
I'm trying to calm myself down a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Carmine, I'm willing to do it too. When the president brought that out earlier this year, I was triggered. But then I thought, but if he gets everything he's asking for, it's worth it. If the president is able to get that plus chain migration, we're talking about the lame duck here. Arms need to be twisted,
Correct.
wrestled, broken off. Whatever needs to be done to get it done now. And then when the Democrats come in, they can investigate and do nothing, which is what they plan to do. They plan to do nothing for the American people. They'll do nothing for us, but we won't need them to do anything for us because the president will have handled the immigration problem, which sets him up for a win in 2020.
I think so. But I think you do. I think, like I said, you're going to have to give to get. You're not just going to get, right? So you're going to have to give something to get this because you're going to need 60 votes in Senate. All right? So you're going to have to give something. And DACA, I think, is the thing we can all live with. Not citizenship.
Just lawful status, so they're not in the shadows anymore.
Because, and as soon as you give that, they're going to demand citizenship, Democrats. You have to understand that, too. It's never going to be good enough.
Well, I think if the same kind of backbone that was shown during the Kavanaugh hearing, if the Republicans could summon that kind of fervor again and get through what you just described, I'd be fine with it. Then I think you probably would see something. So we have to compromise. I'm a true believer. I'm over here on the side with my AR-15 and my Bible and, my Bible study friends. And I don't like compromise, but the reality of politics is that you have to give to get. Right. And so I understand that the horse trading, I think the president's really good at it. And I'd love to see what kind of creative solutions he'd come up with, but we don't have much time. I know government moves slowly intentionally, but Carmine, what do we need to do? Tweet storms? What do we have to do to get these people to kind of wake up to the fact that we want them to use the lame duck to get this finished?
You have to do the old-fashioned thing. You have to do what Democrats do. You have to organize. You have to call. Tweets are not effective. You have to call your local congressperson's office. You have to call your local senator's office. You got to write letters, physical letters. And they know you mean business. They know that if you taken pen to paper, if you picked up a phone, that you mean business. And that's the kind of campaign we have to organize.
All right,
Unfortunately, I'm not the bearer of good news. I don't see it happening.
Well, I'm not here to try to wrestle good news out of you. I like the truth, and I love what you guys do over at thefederalist.com. Thank you so much, Carmine, for joining us today. Your time is valuable, and we appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
All right, talk to you again soon. God bless. You know what? I got a correction from a friend in the live stream. Ocasio-Cortez actually attended Boston University, which is also another real university. Kind of shocking that she's so illiterate, but whatever. We'll be back with more after this.
What does it take to live an uncommon life? Here's former Super Bowl winning coach Tony Dungy with today's uncommon moment.
I had a young man that played for me, Derek Brooks in Tampa. And most athletes 25, 26 years old are thinking about how they can make money and spend money. And Derek took a group of 20 young students and just said, hey, I want you to stay with me. We're going to do some things. We're going to make sure that you see things, but you have to go to school. You have to really strive to stay out of trouble. And he took this Brooks bunch from middle school and now the first group is graduating from high school. Looking at life in a different way and using your gifts in a different way than normal, that's what's important.
Tony Dungy, author of the popular Uncommon book series. Discover more at CoachDungy.com. That's CoachDungy.com.
I was sitting at a motel getting high by myself and looking at my mug shots. Just started crying. And through Teen Challenge, I have now hope and I'm free from drugs and alcohol.
If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, Adult to Teen Challenge can help. There are centers across the country, and you can find the one nearest you at 855-END-ADDICTION or at TeenChallengeUSA.com. This is Urban Family Talk.
The Awakening on Urban Family Talk.
You know, a bunch of people who thought Obama was the Messiah. There are a lot of people who are kind of treating Trump like that.
Bishop E.W. Jackson.
Folks, I'm not looking for a Messiah. I've already got one. His name is Jesus, the Son of the living God. We put our ultimate trust in him. All other human beings are fallible.
The Awakening, weekday mornings at 9 Central on Urban Family Talk.
Pyro to the People with Todd Pyro.
Hey everyone, this is Todd Pyro here in Biloxi, Mississippi with Pyro to the People, asking folks here about what they think of the migrant caravan.
You know, it's just so disappointing, and it's really so disgusting to see how they're just taking advantage.
I think they are trying to invade our borders.
I feel for them. I have empathy for them, but they need to come here in the right manner.
Immigration is at all-time low, and I feel like this caravan, it's been framed by this party as something to fear, and it's a political stunt.
I pity the people. It's a tragedy for them.
I hesitate to think that they're the kind of people we want to have living here.
We've got enough people here that are illegal.
Your sovereignty is diminished.
We have to protect us first. I mean, you don't invade a country.
This has been Todd Pyro with Pyro to the People.
This is Stacy on the Right with Stacy Washington on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Our immigration system has some holes in it. We've identified those for Congress, and long term, I'm hoping that Congress steps up to the plate and fixes those to shut off the draw. But in the meantime, I'd like to point out that not a single migrant climbed over the new border wall. We have about 8 miles of border wall completed here in San Diego. Unfortunately, that's not complete. So the military came over the last several weeks to help us fortify different areas, but it's those weak areas where we have not upgraded the infrastructure that the migrants were able to breach.
So that kind of means that wall works, doesn't it? Wall works. That's a t-shirt. That's a hashtag. I love that Carmine was telling us what we have to do is we have to call and we have to write. And there's nothing hard about this. It just means we have to stop what we're doing, put our phones down, and actually, go onto the website and find, hey, where's my congressperson? Where's their office? And maybe get 3 or 4 friends to do it too. Maybe the letter that you write, you kind of make a generic copy of it and you send it to a couple of friends and say, hey, you know what? I just sent this letter to our congressperson about the lame duck, and I know you're politically minded, and you definitely you're rendering unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Would you mind taking a look at this generic form of my letter and maybe adjusting it to yourself, or taking a nugget or a kernel from it and writing your own letter, because they're not hearing us right now, and they need to know that when they come home for Christmas in their districts, we're going to be giving them the side eye, and we're not going to be hugging them and congratulating them and slipping them a 20, or we're going to be upset if they come home for Christmas and they haven't done anything about the wall. It's important. And you know how it is. Sometimes you'll be talking to somebody and they'll give you an idea, and then months later you think to yourself, I should have run with that. This is one of those times. He just said it doesn't work if we do a Twitter hashtag. It doesn't work if we tweet. And goodness knows why. Twitter is just rife with hateful trolls and barbarism. So why would legislators look there to find out what people want? They think the crazy people are all there. And so many Americans aren't even on Twitter. It's really back to basics. Write the letter. It doesn't have to be long. It should be straight to the point. No invective, no insults. Just, we want you to lay out what you want Shoot it to them. Let them know, don't waste this lame duck session, or we'll see you at the next election when you're up for re-election. When you're up for election next time, we're going to be thinking lame duck. You want a hashtag? We're going to write a hashtag down and put it in a drawer. And the next time we're ready to vote for you, we're going to remember you didn't do anything in the lame duck. You let the Democrats run roughshod over us, and we are not going to forget it. That's something that they will pay attention to. I plan to do it. I have my little to-do list that I keep right here by the show. During the show, I jot down things that I have to do. And I'm going to write a letter, and I already know the group of women that I am going to send this note to request that they join me. This is so important, and it doesn't take long, and it just takes, maybe 10 minutes of your time. And then if you're anything like me, you keep some of these nearby. I'm holding up my little roll of paper stamps. I don't need a lot of them, but I do have to have some here at the house, and so I keep a few. And I how many do I need? Well, I have 2 senators. Actually, Claire McCaskill's on her way out. Bye-bye, Claire. See ya. Yeah, so I won't be mailing one to her because I know she wouldn't vote for it in the Senate, but I will send one to Senator Roy Blunt, who I happen to know. I just saw him at the Trump rally, actually, and said hi. And then the next 2 people, I have Ann Wagner, who was recently reelected. And she's my actual congressperson. So I will send her a note as well. And I happen to know her as well. And it maybe even is worth a phone call on my part to her and one to her office. But we're talking about at most 30 minutes of our time. And if we don't do it, then later, how can we really complain if we didn't let these people know how we feel? Now, I'm talking to you from the heartland here outside St. Louis, Missouri, in the burbs. I live in the actual suburbs. I'm speaking to you in 32 states, 800 communities in the United States, and all over the world via live streams on Periscope and YouTube and Facebook, and then obviously the podcasts, which are located at Urban Family Talk and AFR.net. Now, why am I pointing that out? Because if even half of the people listening in this huge audience said, I'm going to take this 30 minutes because this is my duty as a citizen, and because God rewards actions that we take in faith. He rewards actions that we take in faith. So when we say, look, I've got this problem and I'm praying about it. We're all praying for these legislators. We're all praying for justice and, to be done in the land. We're all praying for revival. But when it comes time to take an action, we have to take that action, and we have to do it because we know that God is sovereign and that he works through us as people, and that he is waiting to show himself strong in us. He's waiting on us to take that one step to show I know my God answers prayer. I need to send this letter so this person can be made aware. Look, I'm watching you, lady. I'm watching you, Ann Wagner. Friends, I love the new grandson that you have. Your husband is an amazing man, and we consider you to be a friend. But on this issue, I'm looking for you to act as my legislator, and I'm looking for you to make sure that this gets done in the lame duck session. That is my duty to do. And it's no accident that Carmine mentioned that today on the show. So if you're listening to the show right now, you're meant to hear this, and you're meant to write a letter, 1 paragraph plus salutation and sincerely your name and your address so they know that you're a member of their district, and write those 2 letters, 1 to your congressperson and 1 to your senator, and let them know what you expect during this lame duck session. And then you print out a copy of the letter that you sent, you write hashtag lame duck on it, and you stick it up on your bulletin board or put it in your drawer where you keep your reference materials, and remember it the next time these people are up for election. If we don't start to hold them accountable, we cannot be upset when we don't get what we were promised. And I'm just sick to death of these people running on all of these different issues and saying that they support this and they support that, and then never, ever, 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 ever following through. They don't feel like they have to. Donald Trump's probably the first man to sit in that office and to really be in charge of the party he seems to have some kind of, it's like a sense of obligation to fulfill the things that he said he was going to do. That is actually a godly concept where the Bible tells us not to swear an oath. Don't swear an oath if you don't mean it. Don't do it because you're swearing to your own damnation. We are not supposed to go up and, you know what? I promise you, if you send me to Congress, I'm going to do X. I'm going to help fund the wall. I'm going to do this, do that. And then they go and they don't do it. Of course, we know they're going to be judged at the judgment seat. Of course, we know no one gets away with anything, but we're still living in the here and now, and we need to be proactive. So I hope, that that's not a dead horse that I just beat, that you heard me and that you're going to participate. And I'm going to do it too. I'm going to do it. And I encourage you to do it and to ask some of your friends to do it. You know who they are. You know those friends who will write a letter off in a minute, those loquacious individuals who they've never met a problem they don't want to surmount and put a stamp on it and send it off. Ask them to join you in this. Let's get this done. It's not too late. It is not too late to get it done. All right, so the title of today's show is about this study. Now, it's just one of those things where you almost feel like you're going crazy. Yale Study, Democrats dumb down speech for Black audiences. Now, I'm not sure exactly how. You hear me sitting here. I'm like drawing a blank here because I'm having trouble, because one of the things that I feel like is really happening to us is that because we have the media and it's all on the side of the Democrats, that they don't feel like they have a obligation to tell the truth about things. They don't feel like they have an obligation to go into any environment and share the truth about what's happening. And so there's two things here. The first thing is it's a Yale study showing that Democrats dumb down speech when it's for blacks. Republicans do not. Now, first caveat out the gate is that Republicans don't speak to majority black audiences as often as Democrats do. So that plays a role in the numbers, but it doesn't skew the data to the point where the data isn't true. But you have to have that information in your toolkit in order to understand what we're talking about here. And so really quickly, the nugget here, you have the soft bigotry of low expectations. Well, a Yale study proves that is true. The Yale Study organization is called Yale Insights. And this is their blurb. It says racial bias can put people of color at a disadvantage when interviewing for a job, buying a house, or interacting with the police. New research suggests that bias may also shape daily interactions between racial minorities and white people, even those whites who tend to be less biased. Now, this is Yale's way of saying Democrats are less biased, but I've told you many times here on the show that I have had some of the most racially insensitive things said to me by Democrats. I mean, bar none. I'm not talking about Twitter trolls. I'm talking about real life people that I know who speak down to me because I'm black, and they feel like they have a right to do it because they're Democrats. You'll have to go back to the podcast for all the examples. So, according to new research by Sydney, her name's spelled weirdly, Sydney Dupree, assistant professor of organizational behavior at Yale SOM, white liberals tend to downplay their own verbal competence in exchanges with racial minorities, compared with how other white Americans act in such exchanges. The study is scheduled for publication in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, and what they found about Democrat politicians is even worse. The team found that Democratic candidates used fewer competence-related words in speeches delivered to mostly minority audiences than they did in speeches delivered to mostly white audiences. Now, this is documentable because you can take the transcript of a speech and you can look for the competency-based words, and you can compare the number of them that were used in a speech given to a white audience and for those used in a speech given to a black audience. I mean, it's pretty astounding. I give speeches, I speak publicly a lot. I have never once thought, oh, I need to dumb this down a little bit based on who the audience is. That's never occurred to me. And I have spoken publicly to black groups. So, I mean, so here they say the difference wasn't statistically significant in speeches by Republican candidates, but it was harder to find speeches from Republicans delivered to minority audiences. But there was no difference in Democrats or Republicans' usage of words related to warmth. It was really surprising to see that for nearly 3 decades, Democratic presidential candidates have engaged in this predicted behavior. So it's the same thing that we made fun of. Do y'all remember we were making fun of Barack Obama using his Al Green voice when he was speaking to the black church? And every time Hillary Clinton speaks to black Christians or black groups, she starts using, a little bit of Southern drawl, and she gets to swinging her neck around and she cracks jokes about hot sauce. She keeps hot sauce in her purse. All these things, some of them are related to warmth, but some of them are kind of dumbing down the conversation because the expectation is that the audience is really not smart enough to absorb the information if it's given in the same fashion that it would be given if the audience was white. Now, that's some serious racism coming from the side that says everything we do on the right is racism. Isn't that something? All right, let's go to the phones. We have just a couple of minutes left in this segment. Eddie from Virginia. Hey, thanks for calling the show today.
Hey, Stacey, how you doing?
Doing good.
Just got 2 comments on the immigration thing. First of all, I'm Hispanic, born and raised here in the United States. I love this country. I'm in favor of the wall. The only thing I don't understand, I haven't heard this before, and perhaps someone has said it at some point, but my thing on immigration is this. Why hasn't anybody said anything as far as helping out the people that are here? My solution is this, or this would be an option I would put out there. Let's the people that came into the country illegally, they broke the law. There are consequences for breaking the law. Let's fine them. Let's have them pay a fine depending on the size of their family, due to the fact they broke the law. Let's help them reside legally in this country. Let's put them in a probationary period. Let's say 5 years where they don't commit any felonies, they get to stay here. If they commit felonies, they get, deported automatically to another country. And let's use that money from the fines that we're going to charge them, that they're going to be fined, to pay for the wall. Why hasn't anybody said anything about that?
That has been suggested. That has been suggested. And there is a fine that's already levied against people who are in the country illegally. And so the money that you're talking about does exist, but it's an appropriations issue where Congress would have to appropriate the funds from the one incoming item to another, and they would have to actually write legislation to make these people who are here illegally lawful. And remember, there was another study by Yale Insights where they were trying to prove that the number of people who were in the country illegally were less than 11 million. And what they found is that there are actually 22.1 million people in the country illegally. And I believe that number is really low. So the reason why that Congress doesn't really want to address this is because first you have to go back into the facts and you have to, like you said, find them all and fine them. And once you've done that, then you have to report to the American people that, oh, I'm sorry, there are 38 million illegal immigrants in this country. And that's when you think a lot of people retired this time? Not only would people be retiring, people would be getting recalled because Americans would finally come to grips with the truth about what is happening with immigration in this country. Thank you so much for calling and for your support of the wall, Eddie. Great to talk to you. If you're leaving us now, because I hear the music, God bless you from the heartland. Citizens, it's time to write a letter to your congressperson and your senator. And if you're sticking around, we have more for you right after this news from onenewsnow.com, which is up next.
Secular progressives in the United States have worked to alter the very nature of our republic.
For the progressives, there are no longer any God-given natural rights.
AFA Executive Vice President Ed Vitagliano helps you understand the progressive threat to the American Republic. Get your copy of this powerful DVD from the AFA Cultural Institute at afastore.net.
Truth, wisdom, empowerment. Urban Family Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. The U.S. Supreme Court seems very likely to rule that the Constitution's ban on excessive fines applies to the states. The outcome could help an Indiana man recover the $40,000 Land Rover police seized when they arrested him for selling about $400 worth of heroin. The court has formally held that most of the Bill of Rights applies to states as well as the federal government, but it has not done so on the Eighth Amendment's excessive fines ban. Law enforcement in Texas spent the morning searching the offices of one of the largest Roman Catholic archdioceses in connection with a priest charged with molesting children. Fox's Evan Brown reports.
Police vehicles lined the street outside the chancery of the Catholic Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston this morning, with officers inside searching for files.
We're here to find out all the employment records, potential disciplinary records, anything that would give us a greater picture.
Part of the investigation into Manuel La Rosa Lopez, a priest facing trial for abusing children.
This is not a search warrant against the Catholic Church.
Brett Ligon is the prosecutor in Houston's northern suburbs where charges are filed.
There are so many lay Catholics out there that are ready for the church to come clean. And I am a lay Catholic myself, but today I stand here as the district attorney of Montgomery County.
Evan Brown, Fox News.
A Virginia man pleads guilty to the rape and murder of a teenage Muslim girl last year. Fox's Gernal Scott has that story.
Darwin Martinez Torres entered the plea, which will mean life in prison without parole when he's sentenced next March. Martinez Torres was accused of killing Nabra Hassanin after he got into an argument with the group she was walking to a mosque with in June of 2017. Prosecutors say Martinez Torres chased the group and caught up with Hassanin, hitting her with a baseball bat. He later raped her and dumped her body in a pond. Police, in their investigation, called the incident road rage and not a hate crime. Martinez Torres' guilty plea means he will avoid the death penalty. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Facebook is expanding a feature that shows people local news and information, including missing person alerts, road closures, crime reports, and school announcements. Called Today In, the service shows people information from their towns and cities from such sources as news outlets, government entities, and community groups. Facebook launched the service in January with a handful of cities and expanded that to 25, then more. Today In is now expanding to 400 cities in the U.S. and a few others in Australia. An actor who was best known for starring in 2 television series has now turned his career into making family-friendly and faith-based films. AFN's Bill Bumpus has more.
He was once known for starring in Hercules and then in Andromeda, but now Kevin Sorbo is making his name acting in many independent films.
I like doing movies that have a good message and a positive message instead of a negative one.
Sorbo tells AFN he's receiving positive feedback on his career turn.
People used to stop me all the time because of Hercules or Andromeda. They stop me now because of God's Not Dead and What If and Abel's Field and my latest movie, Let There Be Light. And they say, please make more movies like that.
And he's not stopping there, as he has narrated a Christmas project that's available for home entertainment called Christmas Dreams.
It's a reimagining of 2 holiday classics, The Little Drummer Boy and The Nutcracker. And it's done in animation plus live action. And it's a wonderful, wonderful retelling of those 2 classics, and it's great for kids under 12 years of age. I know a lot of families are looking for things like that they can watch together with their young ones. Well, this is perfect for them. And they'll be touched and moved by the story.
Sorbo says he already has several other family-friendly projects in the works for next year. I'm Bill Bumpus.
And a massive Norway spruce is ready for stardom in a New York City Christmas tradition. The ceremony will be held this evening to light the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. The tree will burst alive with 5 miles of LED multicolored lights and a 900-pound crystal star during the televised extravaganza. The tree will remain on display until January 7th. It will then be given to Habitat for Humanity to help build homes. Find more news at onenewsnow.com.
Abraham Hamilton III.
God put us in this world at this time to be salt and light. We don't fold because of the darkness that we're facing. This is not the first time in the world's history that it's gotten dark. God has called you and I to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment.
Tune in to the Hamilton Quarter, weekdays at 5 p.m. Central on Urban Family Talk.
She's sharp,
pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Well, Congress has not negotiated in good faith for many years on immigration. They failed to do their job, and I think it's a large part of how the president got elected and why this continues to be a big issue.
I think most Democrats and Republicans believe in border security. They have a different way of coming at it.
That's a question Chuck Schumer is going to have to ask. You know, he was in that boat a few years ago, and it didn't work well for Chuck Schumer during the Schumer shutdown. But ultimately, there's an opportunity for an agreement to be reached here. And it's all about border security, and $5 billion is the number.
If there's any shutdown, it's on President Trump's back. The Republicans are in control of the presidency, the House, and the Senate. A shutdown is on their back.
The plan is we've got to get $5 billion for the wall. And, you know, we're in a situation now where we've actually provided funding for our military. We've provided funding for labor and HHS in the same appropriations bill. That's been completed. That's been signed. And the president's been clear that he's willing to shut down the government if we don't get this $5 billion.
And now, Stacey Washington.
Welcome back to the program. Thanks for being with us. You can go to StaceyOnTheRight.com and hit the subscribe button. You can also find me online on social media outlets, whatever, at Stacey on the Right. This hour, we have John Zmirak, editor of The Stream. Stream.org is a website. He's going to come on and talk to us about the caravan. Right now, I want to pivot over to a subject that's near and dear to my heart that is really important to Americans in general, but specifically Americans who are parents, and that is our public education system. Now, you've got Dr. DeVos coming out and speaking. She's a Secretary of Education, speaking about the Democrats and their unions and what is going on with the situation here. And so I'm not actually against, obviously I like teachers. I think they're wonderful people, but I think public school teachers have really been done a disservice by unions. And now it's kind of like, they're married to the devil. They feel no way out. Now there is a way out, and we're seeing a lot of just charter schools popping up in a lot of different places, a lot of different educational options. Millions of parents in America are now homeschooling and really taking advantage of that time that they can spend with their kids. And for families that both parents work, there are even homeschool options where a group of people, teachers, et cetera, are homeschooling your kids at what's called a learning center. And so it's still the freedom of homeschool where you choose your classes. It's like being in school, but you choose the classes that you're going to take. So instead of waiting until college to do that, you start doing that as early as middle school. And the curriculum is kind of laid out before you for choices, and it's just an amazing array of options that have become available to parents recently. From the traditional homeschool model, where it's the mom or the dad at home doing the homeschooling, to all of the different things that have come about because Americans are realizing what she's about to discuss here in this clip, that every student doesn't learn in the same way, and every traditional school building doesn't meet the needs of every child. So if you want to meet the needs of your child and you're really interested in getting an option for them that can work, then you have other things available to you. But she wants to make that even more prevalent, to kind of eliminate this idea that there's only one way to educate your child. So here she is in number 4 talking about that.
Practically speaking, we need many more kinds of educational experiences for students to pursue, to get the best out of each and every student. For some students, it might mean longer school days or more days in school. For others, it might mean a different kind of environment where they are hands-on learning and doing project-based learning. But we have to make sure that all of them have the opportunity to develop the skills that are going to take them forward into adulthood, like critical thinking, communication skills, fostering creativity, and the ability to work together with others. Much of that has been lost as we've been focused so much on assessments of math and reading, and even in doing so, we've seen those scores just sort of taper off and continue to be the middle of the pack as compared to the rest of the world. We're trying to do a top-down approach that is imposed on almost everyone, and it doesn't work for way too many students.
So Betsy DeVos has made a point here that a lot of parents have come to through trial and error, and it can be really hard for some families when they're looking for something for their kids. If their child has any kind of learning disability or special need, they can look around, and not only do the public schools not have the options they want, but sometimes they can't get their child into a private school that they want to get into, because a lot of private schools don't take any, they're not willing to do individual education plans. And so it can be very, very difficult. What she's talking about would help to address some of those needs as well. It's not just traditional learning students who are having trouble fitting into that old industrial age model of everyone sitting in a classroom of 18 to 25 kids and all the desks facing the front and spending 55 minutes listening to a lecture and then getting a sheet of homework and doing that at night. And that works for a bunch of kids, but it also doesn't work for bunches more. And we need options that can meet the needs of these children and still maintain a viable source of labor for us in the future. And I know that's not popular to say. Most people are like, well, don't talk about people as if they're cogs in a wheel. Well, we're not, but where do you think we get employees for all of these fantastic companies that people are creating? You have to have kids who can read and write and do math on grade level. So it's important. There's no getting around this. And when we don't have American kids who are graduating at grade level, proficient or advanced, and college ready, even if they're not going to college, what happens? You see people who own businesses using lobbyists to get people in Congress to give them more H-1B1 visa authorizations. They'll go overseas and get the labor. And some countries around the world are turning out more college graduates on a yearly basis. Like India, they graduate more people from college every year than we have as a population of our entire country. We have 320 some odd million, correct? Is that 314, 300, whatever number you'd like. They're graduating around 350 million college graduates a year because they have over 1 billion people living there. That means those people are graduating with college degrees and they want to go somewhere where they can work and make a fantastic living. That creates a permanent underclass of Americans who are not viable in the workplace for anything other than, very entry-level labor. To which they say, well, I have a family. I don't want to make $7.50 an hour. To which businesses say, you know what? I'll just put a robot there. I'll just put a huge thing that looks like an iPad there to take orders. That's what they're doing at McDonald's. I don't know if you've noticed, but these kiosks have been something that are a thing for over 20 years overseas, because overseas they didn't have the labor that was willing to do this entry-level basic work. They had plenty of it with people working in grocery stores and gas stations, et cetera. They didn't need people to man McDonald's in that way. So they have always had a leaner workforce overseas, especially in Germany. That's where I grew up, and that's where I get this, I saw the kiosks there first. Well, now here in the U.S., it's not that there aren't people who need these jobs. It's that the people who need these jobs are unemployable. They won't show up. They won't stay employed for the same company. They won't just, hey, welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order? They have an attitude problem. When you order, they don't get your order right. And so what's easier? Make all of the machines that make the food, add a computer to them. You have 3 people working there instead of 8. You get rid of 5 negative ninnies with bad attitudes who don't want to work there, who just want to be paid for doing nothing, who won't show up on time, who won't show up at all. You get rid of them and replace them with kiosks. So the only ones who are there are ones who can manage the computers, manage the robots, et cetera, and make sure that everything's running smoothly. You don't need as many people. That's where this is going, which means it's even more important. If you thought a good education was important before, it is even more important now to have the basics, because anyone can say, I have a high school education, I was at or above grade level, and I was enjoying myself. I was living life to the fullest, and it was great. And I'm working, and now, you know what? I think I need to go on and get some technical school, or I need to go on and get some kind of advanced training, or I'm ready to go and get my bachelor's degree. If you were on grade level, at or above, proficient or advanced, then it doesn't matter when you decide to go take that leap and get some college, you can still do it. But if you're struggling and just barely graduating from high school and you have the absolute, it's not even the minimum, it's, oh my goodness, how did you get a high school diploma? You can barely read at like an 8th grader. And if you have any children who read at the college level, you know what the difference between those two things are. If you can't read at grade level in the 8th grade or the 12th grade, you're not reading at the adult reading level for Americans, then you're also not thinking at that level. You're not communicating at that level. And you're not able to control yourself at that level. I mean, not just where you can say, well, this otherwise fantastic individual who has all these wonderful skills but can barely read at the 8th grade reading level. No, it's indicative of other issues. And this is hard talk because people don't want to hear it because, well, you're talking about this group of people. You're downgrading that. You hate yourself. No, I don't. I actually think it is the most caring thing you can do is to say to a child and their parents, your child's not at reading level. They're not at grade level. Here's the grade level where they're reading. We need to do something about that. Here's a plan of attack to get your child up to not just proficient, but basically advanced in reading or in math or in whatever the subject matter is. That is one of the most caring things a person can say to you, an educator, a superintendent, a principal, teacher, what have you. Anyone who's willing to tell you that truth is basically saying, I see a big, huge pit up ahead of you. And instead of you just barreling forward and falling into that pit, never to be recovered, I want you to pump the brakes and let's address this issue. Let's get this pit out of your direction. You're not going anywhere near this pit. We're going to rescue you from this pitfall. You're going to be at grade level and be able to continue on with your education if you want to. It's one of the most caring things anyone can say to you. That, and, you know, obviously, if you have some kind of illness or disease that needs to be addressed and you don't know about it, or, I mean, obviously the biggest one, do you know our Savior, you know, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Do you know him? Do you want to know him? So this isn't about looking down on anyone. It's about saying, I don't want a person to be in the trap that is not having a proper education in America. It sets you up for failure, sets you up for a life of crime and degradation. And we should be doing everything we can to stop people from going in that direction. So Betsy DeVos, obviously, she gets a lot of flack from people on the left because they hate her. But look what happened with Ron DeSantis down in Florida. Ron DeSantis won his race due in no small part to black women who crossed over from voting for Democrats because Black PAC, which is I believe they're based in Florida. It's an organizing 501c3 or C4. What they do is they raise money and they put it behind candidates who adhere to a certain ideology, namely school choice, things that really make radical changes in communities. And so what they did was they ran ads saying, hey, not at behest of the candidate. Ron DeSantis didn't have anything to do with it. Black PAC said, look, you got two candidates here. You got Gillum, who he's against school choice. He doesn't care how bad your kid's school is. Your kid has to stay there. And you got DeSantis. DeSantis says, you want an opportunity to go to a school that rocks? You want to put your kid using a voucher or a lottery system or whatever the deal is. You want your kid out of that failing school? Then yes, let's do that. Let's change your child's future. Let's set them on the path to being able to access the American dream. Those ads tipped the scale in DeSantis's favor because women who otherwise disagree with the Republican Party platform were thinking about what they should be thinking about, which is the betterment of their children and their families. And they said, you know what, I got to get over here and vote for this guy because I do want my kids in a good school. School choice is a winning issue for any political party that decides to undertake it. The Democrats say they're not opposed to it, but they have the teachers' unions to bow to, and we don't. The Republicans don't. So as we go out, let's listen to number 5. They'll take us out into the break. It's DeVos 2.
The teachers union has a stranglehold on many of the politicians in this country, both at the federal level and at the state level. And they are very resistant to the kind of changes that need to happen. They are very protective of what they know, and they're really protective of adult jobs and not really focused on what's right for individual students. In some states, we've made significant progress, but there is a lot more progress to be made. And at the federal level, I think there needs to be honest conversations in the policymaking rooms around what is right long-term for the health of our students, of our children, which is the future of our country.
So right. All right. We'll be back with John Zmirak right after these messages. You keep it here.
Every day in preborn centers across the country, young women in crisis find refuge. Here's Roxy, nurse director for preborn at the Crisis Pregnancy Center in Southern California.
A lot of them come to us and they feel rejected, they feel alone, they're in a crisis situation, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to start. We believe that sharing the compassionate love of Jesus Christ is what really makes what we do work.
Through love and compassion, young women facing tough situations get to meet Jesus Christ and their unborn baby on ultrasound.
And I got to hear and see my baby for the first time. Hearing the heartbeat made me cry, and it was certain that I was going to keep my baby forever.
For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds, and you'll receive a story and a picture of babies' lives that were spared. To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 and say baby. Or go to preborn.com.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Although human trafficking is in the news quite often, there's still a need to learn more about this scourge in our society. That's why I invited Victor Boutros of the Human Trafficking Institute to talk about 7 things everyone should know about human trafficking. First, the problem is enormous. Traffickers are exploiting an estimated 24.9 million victims. That means there are more slaves in the world today than existed during the height of slavery a few centuries ago. Second, human trafficking is not about movement. When you hear the word trafficking, you think they're being moved around, but the essence of trafficking is coercion, not movement. Third, traffickers are motivated by money. The wages of sin are enormous when human trafficking is involved. Annual profits exceed $150 million a year. That is more than the annual profits of Exxon, Microsoft, BP, Samsung, and Apple combined. Fourth, anyone can be a trafficking victim. It affects children and adults, citizens and visitors, women and men, boys and girls. Fifth, traffickers vary their tactics. They tailor their tactics to the unique vulnerabilities of each victim. Sixth, the goal is not to prosecute the victims. Law enforcement wants to put traffickers in jail. And seventh, there is hope that traffickers can be stopped. We're not powerless against this enormous problem. The Human Trafficking Institute has developed specialized programs to help law enforcement of this country and other countries begin to make a difference. When you hear the facts and statistics, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the magnitude of this problem. Fortunately, many groups are working to stop traffickers and prevent others from becoming victims. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kirby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
You can watch a live stream of the show on Facebook or YouTube at Stacy on the Right. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure to be with you. And it's also a pleasure to welcome John Zmirak, editor of The Stream, for a little bit of chatting about the caravan. John, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm senior editor at stream.org. If people want to check it out, we have a lot of commentary about the immigration issue and the caravan in particular. We have an interview with an American missionary who lives in Honduras talking about the root causes of the caravan and the impact that it's having on society in Honduras. And what a lot of people would be surprised to know is that the caravan is very destructive of Honduran society. Thousands of Hondurans have abandoned their families to go work in the United States. And they send money, which is appreciated, but it's no replacement for having a mother or a father. And according to our sources there, one of the things it does is it convinces people in Honduras that they need to come to America because it's a land of milk and honey. And they watch American movies and TV shows, and everybody looks like they're rich. And they think, oh, if I arrive in America, I'll be rich like them. And they come and they get a very different reality where a lot of them are low skill, low educated. Some of them are illiterate. Most of them haven't finished high school. There aren't a lot of jobs for people with that low level of skill in America, and we have a lot of unemployed people here. So they arrive, and they end up disappointed. Some of them end up on public assistance. Some of them end up committing crimes. And meanwhile, Honduras' families get shattered, and their kids grow up without parents.
Okay, so you gave us a lot of info there. I'm of the mindset that, because I watched a clip from MSNBC, which I was so surprised this was on MSNBC, but they actually had a reporter down in Tijuana talking to people who were there who've changed their minds. And they have about 80 people a day say that sitting there in a stadium with 5,000 other people waiting for the opportunity to apply for asylum in Mexico, not getting released into the United States, and knowing that their asylum claim is likely to be denied has caused about 80 people a day to kind of take up either the Mexican offer of a job and, asylum there, or to take the trip. It's taking them about 3 days to get back home. I don't know if they're busing them or if they're flying them from place to place, but the Mexican government is providing, the opportunity to take these people back to Honduras or El Salvador. And I think it's important to note that when they've been sold a bill of goods, these people have been told, all you got to do is make it to the southern border and say you're afraid for your life, and in you go, and you'll be living like the people in the videos you see on the social media. I think that's a part of it too. It's not just the movies.
Yeah.
It's Instagram.
Well, unfortunately, our laws have a massive loophole in them. If those people make it onto U.S. soil, they can basically disappear into the country. We can't hold them for very long, especially if they bring their children along. They bring their children. We can only hold the children, I think, for like 10 days or something. And we've decided not to separate parents from children, or the young people they say are their children. Sometimes it's traffickers. So because of the failure of Congress to fix our asylum laws, these people are guaranteed a hearing, and the hearings don't happen for years, and 80% of them or 90% of them are rejected because they're false asylum claims. But 90 or 70, I don't remember what percentage, don't even show up for the hearing. They just disappear into the U.S. forever.
Yeah, and
So
over
that's
90% of them are denied. That's the statistic that Americans need to hear from CNN and everywhere else, that almost 97% of the claims for asylum are denied, but it doesn't matter because the people are already in the country. Now, some of them do, John, self-deport, but that's not the point.
What is
Most
wrong
of them
with
stay.
our system that we let people into the country, 90% of whom are not actually eligible for asylum? Where is the breakdown? Jeff Sessions tried to fix it, but courts have interfered with him. We need Congress to act to say, if you have passed through a safe country, if you say you're a refugee from Honduras, if you get into Mexico, period, that's it. If Mexico offers you asylum, you have to take it. That's international law. It should be American law. This is something Trump should have acted on while he had a Republican Congress. And now we're going to spend the next 2 years fending off one caravan after another. And we have to cooperate, count on Mexico to keep them off U.S. soil. Because the moment they hit U.S. soil, George Soros lawyers and people working for the Catholic bishops — I'm a Catholic, but I'm appalled by the way my bishops have been manipulating this issue — they show up and they start throwing up legal, spurious legal arguments that are just enough to get the people released, and then they disappear into the country, and we have more illegal immigrants.
So excellent recap, but there's one more thing, which is this is the lame duck session, and Democrats were able to push through Obamacare in a lame duck. So there's no reason why we can't get $5 billion in wall funding and just that one little law tweak that you just discussed. I mean, I want the end of chain migration and everything else, but how about if we just take one bite at a time, get the funding for the wall and get that change made so that there is no due process for people who are not citizens of this country. And if you refuse asylum, you cannot apply for it. So, if you get an offer from Mexico...
If you refuse asylum in Mexico, you can't apply for it here.
Exactly.
So the only people who ought to be applying for asylum are people being persecuted by the Canadian or the Mexican governments. Everybody else, no luck.
Well, we know that the Canadian and Mexican governments don't persecute their people. So
right, I know.
Okay, I'm just making sure we're because I made this point months ago.
The Canadian government's going after Christians in a pretty bad way.
Well, we don't mind
maybe
Canadian
you're going
Christians.
to have a lot of Christians fleeing Canada to get away from the religious persecution.
We'd love to have them. Canadian Christians, bring it on. I mean, bring on those Canadian Christians. Yeah.
Yeah.
We want those.
Come on down. The water's fine.
Yeah, we want you. We'll trade you for every Canadian Christian family they send us. We'll give them 100 of our illegal immigrants from Mexico, El Salvador, and Honduras.
So the fault here is with the Republicans. A lot of these Republicans who are leaving were rhinos, and they didn't support Trump on immigration, and they lost their seats. So really, the balance in the House is not changing that much because a lot of the Republicans who are retiring or lost weren't with us anyway on any of the crucial issues. They were part of the cheap labor lobby and the Paul Ryan corporate globalist cabal.
Thank you for pointing it out.
Wanted Jeb Bush for president.
Thank you, because I don't know if you saw there's some video out there, and I didn't cut it for the show because Barack Obama's voice is so annoying to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's so annoying, and I'm not easily triggered, but I tried to listen to some this morning, and I was like, nope, I ain't doing it. Is
he not the smuggest human being ever to walk the earth?
It's so hard to take. I mean, because if he were really accomplished, I would be fine with it. Like I actually know people who are smug, but they're super accomplished. And I just kind of give them a pass because I'm like, you've been burning rubber for like, I don't know how many years now. You're just killing it. You're a little smug, but I can take it. I can't take smugness from people who have no accomplishments. So he was out at some Republican organization, some, kind of Bush sycophancy in that whole realm. And they let him come speak to this Republican organization. And he took credit for the boom in our natural gas and the boom in oil production and the economy and all this other stuff. He was like, you have to thank me. You should thank me for that because that started under me. And the reason I bring him up at this juncture is that here's a guy who's literally trotting around to Republicans and saying things that are undermining President Trump. And these Republicans are clapping and laughing and enjoying it. And I feel like the ones who retired this year, John, that's their group. Like they're going to go hang out with that. And so I'm fine with it. I'm glad to see them
We lost a couple of good people. We lost Dave Bratt from Virginia, and he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was.
I think we lost Dana Rohrabacher, who was also very good. But most of the people who left were just rhinos, and so let's just go ahead and put them in the Natural History Museum, stuff them, put them in a diorama.
I don't know if I'd even put up with that. I'm into burning stuff and moving on. Like, let it go, put it behind you. I'm glad they're gone. I hate that we had a couple of real good people that were casualties of the movement, but it's a cleansing that prepares us for the next go round, electing some true Republicans. And it also means that people who run, John, hopefully the next Republicans who run against those Democrats who currently hold those seats, they'll have to have already reckoned with themselves that this is the Trump Republican Party now, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if I want to be a part of
Jeff Flake Republican Party,
or John McCain,
these are not the Republicans who gathered at John McCain's 7th or 8th funeral. I'm not sure how many they had, but before they put him in that giant pyramid they built for him, and held hands with Michelle Obama. A few days before, the Democrats went full Michael Avenatti on Brett Kavanaugh.
Right.
That shows you how much bipartisanship is worth.
Nothing.
Bipartisanship gets you Julie Swetnick. It gets you Michael Avenatti. It gets you Christine Blasey Ford. It gets you absolutely nothing.
Lindsey Graham learned his lesson.
Yes, he did. I think once McCain was gone, I think McCain must have had some voodoo totem that he controlled Lindsey Graham, and when he died, the spell was broken because Lindsey Graham just seems like a new man. The mind control is over.
John, my joke is that John McCain loosed Lindsey Graham, and now Lindsey Graham is running up and down the halls of the Senate like a Pentecostal on fire for the Lord. He's full of fire and vigor, and he's a renewed man. It's like a revival has been let loose in his heart, and he's just a Republican again, and he's loving it so much he just can't keep quiet about it. He's singing from the rooftops, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, he's got so much swagger now. Some of the people at IJR and other websites have taken to giving him, it's like the Snoop Dogg music and the little, they're like GIF sunglasses, and they drop them on you when you're really cool. When you say something, you own somebody, as according to the youth slang. They put those on you. They've been doing it to him so often. I'm like, he's just on fire. He can't be stopped.
Yeah.
We need him to lay hands on some of the others.
In America, more pathetic than Jeff Flake?
I know.
Does anybody care what this guy has to say?
Not me. I haven't
Couldn't even get renominated by his own party. Did a book. He stole the title of Conscience of a Conservative from Barry Goldwater and stole even the cover design. Wow. I mean, what's his next book going to be? God and Man at Yale, or maybe Ben-Hur, or War and Peace? I'm looking forward to Jeff Flake's future literary productions.
I'm I'm not, because I had no idea he'd stolen the title of a book. You're educating us here, like in spades. But I have to point out, John.
Conscience of a Conservative was written by Barry Goldwater.
Well, I know
an
that.
Arizona senator.
I didn't know Jeff Flake had stolen
What does Jeff Flake do? But the same title and the same cover design, and he's also an Arizona senator. I think he just wants people to buy his book by mistake when they're trying to buy Goldwater.
Well, okay, so that's pretty low. But what do you expect? So, see, for him, he's never really hidden his inability to be a true Republican, and I've always wondered what he's been doing there. And now it'll be good for him not to be.
He ran as a Tea Party guy, and then he took off the mask once he was in Congress.
Just like that Palestinian chick who just won up in Michigan, who
didn't
support BDS.
The one who married her brother.
Mm-hmm. She didn't support BDS, but now she does. Yeah,
so much of what's happening to us seems like it was taken from some apocalyptic novel written by some crazy guy in a double-wide trailer, self-published and sold at gun shows. But, oh, wait, it's all actually happening.
Well, it's happening, but as people learn, like the constituents who elected Jeff Flake, they should have learned something by now. And if they haven't, they still have some time, to learn it. But the most important thing we can do is, as you're doing over at the stream and as we're doing here on the show, is to just get the truth out there. And people really have to make up their own minds. And we really have to bear with the consequences of the people that we send in for us. Like the people of Missouri, we just got rid of Claire McCaskill. Yeah. Oh, my goodness, John.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of us who I feel like dancing in the streets. It's only 30 degrees outside, so I won't. But I feel like going out there with my dog and just dancing in the streets and during the school day while the kids are gone because they'd be so embarrassed. And just getting all of my energy out. Hey,
I can recommend one thing. I have a new book out, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Immigration. And if you guys want the facts and the arguments and the history on immigration, please check it out. It's at Amazon and at bookstores.
Nice. Okay, I didn't know you had a new book out. Awesome. Well, I'll have to put that on my list.
Please check it out.
Politically Incorrect Guide to Immigration. Oh, I bet you this is going to be good.
So I think you'll like it.
So I'm pretty sure I will. So we just have another couple of minutes left here, and I wanted to find out from you, as I was telling people last segment, or actually last hour, that you have to write letters to Congress. We had Carmine Sabia on here, and he was telling us, that Twitter hashtags don't work, Facebook campaigns don't work. You have to actually send paper letters or make real phone calls to try to get something done during the lame duck on funding the border wall, because the president needs to have that money before these crazy whacked out Democrats take over the House.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think? Is that going to work for us? We're about to start writing our letters and sending them off.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and also phone calls, and let them know you'll support a shutdown of the government. Look, if the government can't guard the border, what is the use of having a government? Why not just be honest and say the government is broken, we're closing it for business because we can't even guard the border.
Can't do
we're guarding the borders of Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, but we can't effectively guard our own. And the Democrats what do they want to do? They want to abolish ICE. I think I'm going to start calling them the party of MS-13, because if they were working directly for MS-13, they could not be doing a better job.
They couldn't. There's no way they could be better at what they do, which is just destroying our national sovereignty. But there's an answer for that. And I really feel like, you had no idea I was going to ask you that question. You've given your honest appraisal, which is that those letters and phone calls still do work, and we've got to get it done. And I think also Politically Incorrect Guide to Immigration by John Zmirak. We can find it at Amazon. We'll definitely be checking that out as well. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Okay, you too. Talk to you soon. So I got to say, I'm encouraged by that. That's our little temperature taking right there. So now we got to proceed. I've already had someone send me a note on Facebook saying, will I post my letter so that, people can have it to kind of lift a little the nuggets of data from, especially if they're not into writing letters or it's not something that they've done before. And I'm going to put it up at stacyontheright.com so you can find it, and it will automatically post to Facebook and Twitter, et cetera, so you can find it there. And feel free to use it, because I think we've got a good idea here. We can make something happen. We have only to act because God has already given us the victory. Remember in the Old Testament where he told Joshua, I've already given them into your hand? They hadn't even lifted a sword yet. We can do this. We'll be back with more right after these messages. This is Just a Minute with Stacey Washington. The Democrats have a new agenda when they take over the House of Representatives in January, and it's not going to be to the benefit of the American people. Apparently, Team Pelosi's entire scheme is to see just how many investigations can be launched. Also, those dastardly Trump tax returns must be published. Never mind the 55,000 lives a year lost to opioid overdoses. Never mind the U.S. budget deficit has ballooned under a Republican president and needs reining in by Congress. Never mind that we have human trafficking and illegal entry rapidly increasing at our southern border. No, none of those things are important. What really matters is the president's tax returns and also what he eats for breakfast and also what he tweets. That's the new agenda of the House of Representatives under control of the Democrats. I'm Stacey Washington. Find out more at staceyontheright.com.
American Family Radio.
Samaritan's Purse.
And your family.
Together, we can bring good news and great joy to needy children.
Simply pack an Operation Christmas Child shoebox with toys, school supplies, and hygiene items. Then, drop off your shoebox gift during National Collection Week.
Visit AFR.net, click the Operation Christmas Child banner, and then get packing.
Romans 13:14 says, "Clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ, and make no provision for the desires of the flesh." So what are you clothing yourself with? Whether we realize it or not, what we allow in our temples affects our way of living. We can't feed ourselves junk and expect to hear from the Lord. Clothe yourself with the righteousness of God at urbanfamilytalk.com.
This is Fox on Justice, a legal tug-of-war over Erica. You've probably seen ads and promos for Bank of America's new virtual assistant named Erica.
I'll go ahead and transfer $800 from your savings to your checking account.
A Colorado businessman named Eric Underwood is claiming ownership rights to the name Erica. Underwood, who ran for governor this year, owns a company called My24.com, part of which is an entertainment news aggregation site that he's named Entertainment Repetitious Informational Clone Application. Erica. It also happens to be the name of Underwood's twin sister. He's filed a lawsuit scheduled to be heard this week that he had the name Erica first, and he's accusing Bank of America of unfair competition. Bank of America counterclaims Underwood doesn't have a case and is just trying to make a withdrawal from the bank in the form of a legal settlement. By the way, the bank says that the name Erica comes from the last 5 letters in the company's name, Bank of Erica. With Fox on Justice, Hank Weinblum, Fox News.
Welcome back to Stacey on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Hey, welcome back to the program. Thanks for being with us. Last segment of the show, we usually take calls. If you want to call in, it's 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. Let's go to the phones now and talk to Jimmy. Jimmy, thanks for calling in today.
Hey, Stacey, how you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Doing fine, just fine.
All right. What's your comment?
I'd like to talk with you about a couple of things, Stacey, because I listen to you at night when I'm out riding around. I'm retired and I do the newspapers at night. And I'll be listening while I'm riding. And that bothers me on both sides.
Wait, I missed what you said. What bothers you?
I said it's some political situations on both sides of the aisle that bothers me.
Okay.
And because I normally vote Democrat. I have voted Democrat, but I about to gave that up too. Because one situation I don't agree with babies being killed, and I don't agree with homosexuality.
Okay.
That's the Democrat side. I don't agree with racism. I know you're not going to agree with me on that, but I'm in Mississippi, and I saw that yesterday also in that voting down here. And I don't agree with that either. That's the Republican side. So I'm about done with voting anyway, because ain't neither side doing what they should do to get this country in order. It's time for us to come together, Jackson. If it's a Democrat president or Republican president, one side get in office and get in power, the other side turns against them instead of trying to work with them, like Democrats doing Republicans now. And it's enough of that. It's time for all this hateful rhetoric to stop and people to come together. But this is the United States. We fight wars all over this world. We got soldiers all over this world just about. But yet we can't get together here in our own country. And it don't make no sense to us. And believe me, I'm no millionaire. I'm no political hack. I know what I see. I watch the news all the time. I keep up with this stuff. But there's this one thing I do need to say this, though. You're a big supporter of Donald Trump. And I got to say this. That man is looking to become a dictator.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jimmy, for calling the show. And I appreciate your candor and the things that you shared, your opinions. Thank you so much for calling the show. I guess what I have to say in response to that is obviously that racism knows no party. There are racists who are Democrats and there are racists who are Republicans. The issue that we have now is that we have a huge media complex that paints every Republican as a racist. And so the evidence against Cindy Hyde-Smith that she's some kind of racist down in Mississippi, so she was never a racist until she ran against a Democrat who happened to be black, Mike Espy, who had a whole lot of convictions for all kinds of craziness when he was the Secretary of Agriculture, but the media never covered that. And as far as my support for Donald Trump, exactly at what point, what is he doing exactly that what makes him a dictator? I know that the caller said he listens to both sides of media, but he's obviously listening to a lot of MSNBC and CNN where they use words like dictator, Nazi, Reichstag, things that would make Americans think that any minute Donald Trump is going to use the government to round up black Americans or gay Americans or women or children and ship them off to concentration camps. Never mind the fact that our president is constitutionally limited in ways that Hitler never was. And Hitler killed 6 million Jewish people and 18 million people total. And Donald Trump hasn't killed anybody. He hasn't even been convicted of or indicted for this so-called Russian collusion. So, I respect other people's opinions. And I agree that both parties have flaws and that there are different things that are going on with each one. But who do you serve? Do you serve your skin? Or do you serve the one true God who sits on the throne and never once in the Bible called anyone black or white or Hispanic? He called us children of the King or people who serve Satan. Those are the only two designations that matter. Once you get into the New Testament, God does not concern himself, and neither does Jesus Christ, with the matters of these insignificant things, whether or not we have a tan. And yes, there is racism. I have experienced it recently. There's no discounting that. But I've also experienced people gossiping. I've also experienced people verbally attacking me. These are all sins. Racism is not the only sin going in this country. There's plenty of it that's going on right now, every minute of the day. And so I just caution people to, first of all, I have a right to support Donald Trump or to not support him, just like you have a right to not support him or support him. And so to question my support of Donald Trump and somehow link it to him being a dictator or him being a racist really goes against my right to support whoever I want. And I just won't tolerate it. You have your opinion, I have mine. You have your right to your opinion, I have mine. And that's the end of it. So last thing we have going on is this U.S. Customs and Border Patrol Commissioner saying that the current laws inviting and incentivizing caravans, it's number one.
First, let me just comment on the caravan. We've been saying it for weeks. This is a different phenomenon. A large caravan crossing with violence across two international borders, primarily adult male, not like the prior caravans last spring and the year before. This is a different phenomenon. Again, they used force against Mexican police. They used force to try to enter the country yesterday. This is a different group. Also the size, as you noted. We have not seen caravans come together at this scope and size. To have 8,500 people in one Mexican state at the same time, intending to be a cohesive group to approach the border, that's new, that's different, and that's a challenge. In terms of the structure, I mean, the incoming Congress is really going to have to grapple with the fact that the legal framework that we maintain is inviting and incentivizing this kind of challenge, this kind of behavior. Alongside these 8,500 people we have in Baja California, over the last 5.5 weeks since this group formed, we've seen over 60,000 people either cross our border illegally, 85% of them, or arrive at our ports of entry and claim asylum lawfully. That's a massive flow, and they know that they are going to be released into the United States if they make an asylum claim to await a court proceeding that could be years out. Congress needs to face the reality of that, and in that process, they're paying smugglers, they're putting themselves and their children at risk, and it's a dynamic that's really not sustainable or safe for anyone. We have vulnerable people in the hands of violent criminals throughout this cycle, and that's not a good place to be.
And so this is the issue that Democrats don't want to talk about. Why aren't they showing the caravan anymore, except for the staged pictures of children being gassed with the white canisters that don't have any tear gas in them? Well, because this doesn't play well with the public. Most Americans believe in the rule of law. And if any person of American parentage, any American citizen can be pulled over for driving too fast or driving under the influence, or you can have your car in your house fined and cited for having your garage the wrong color or parking on the wrong side of the street on street cleaning day, and other people are allowed to breach our border and come in and get on welfare, and we're supposed to just let that happen. The rule of law is not supposed to be able to see the person that's being given the law. It's supposed to be blind. If we have a nation of laws and a social compact that says we all agree that we're here together and we're all members of the same country. And, you know, the last caller was talking about unity and coming together. One way to destroy unity is to say that because I don't agree with you, you're a dictator, that I don't like your policies, so you must be a dictator. The way to properly disagree is to say, you know what, these are the policies that I don't like. Here are some compromises, or here are some opposing views that are much better in practice. Here's some data, here's some facts, here's some information about how these programs have helped people, and the program that you're proposing doesn't help people. But people can't come against the Republican Party platform or the ideas that we're espousing with any true facts or information, because the facts and information don't support the Democratic Party line. And I'll just say this, you know, instead of worrying about whether or not Donald Trump is a dictator, we should be more concerned with whether or not the votes that we're taking and the stances that we're promoting, espousing, are in alignment with the Word of God. If we are lined up with what God's Word says, we can walk forward in confidence and courage, knowing that we are honoring Him with our votes. Not voting does not honor God. That does not render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. We have to not only be informed, we have to be prayerfully executing our duty as citizens, not just to maintain our liberties, not just to make sure America continues on and we have something to pass on to our children and grandchildren, but because there's a judgment seat that's coming. And when we get there, we won't be able to argue that this one was a dictator or that one hated black people or yada, yada, yada. We're going to be asked about whether or not we opposed abortion, infanticide, throwing babies' human bodies in garbage cans and dumpsters behind abortion clinics and selling off their parts to government agencies to use for, experimentation. That's what we're going to be asked. Did you support that, or did you oppose it? Were you fine with your tax dollars funding that, or did you oppose it? There won't be any questions about racism other than if a person is a racist, that's not going to be something God approves of. But He's also not going to be approving of us gossiping, lying, maligning each other, defaming each other, getting into petty arguments on Twitter and Instagram, not treating each other with love, not taking care of the poor and the widow, not taking care of our own actual citizens, members of our national family before we take care of outsiders, spending outside of our means as a country, spending outside of our means personally, not taking care of our own children, allowing the government to take care of our children, and so much more. The list of things that we're going to be held accountable for is so lengthy that our obsession with race is really a deflectionary tactic. It's the way that we focus on something that really, you can't control another person having racist feelings in their body, but you can control what you feel and what you believe in the way that you behave. And if you are not honoring God with your vote, that is going to be something that you'll be held accountable for. Not by me. I won't be there. I have nothing to do with it. I didn't write the book. I didn't edit it. I have nothing to do with what the Bible says other than I'm reading it and studying it and trying to get my life in line with it. And no matter what you think or feel about my opinions or my presentation or any of those other tertiary, really unimportant details, it is God that you will have to reckon with, because he is not mocked. And sin cannot exist in his presence. And he will bring all of us to account. Me, every thought, every word, everything I've ever said or done, I will have to account to him for it. And that is my primary concern. And so while it is important for us to share our opinions, and going back and forth and debating is it's right, it's righteous, it's good to do. But in the end, if we are not addressing ourselves to the beam in our own eye, instead worrying about the speck in somebody else's eye, we are in for a world of hurt on that day. So if you are listening to this show and you don't know Jesus Christ, I invite you to come into the family. All you have to do is say, Father, I'm a sinner, and I understand that in this current state, I am your enemy, but I want to be forgiven. I believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for me, and he rose again on the third day, and he went and took the keys to death from Satan, and now he sits at the right hand of the Father, and he is my Lord and Savior. Come into my heart, accept me, and bring me into right relationship with you. And then find a church, get baptized, and let's get the party started. Do that, and then start to see how God, through his wisdom and through your studying of the scriptures, will bring you into an understanding of what his will for you in your life is. And let's all work on that. Every one of us has that as a job to do for ourselves. And as far as the rest of it, God bless, and have a fantastic night. We have just so much great stuff going on the program coming up. I want to, first of all, I'm speaking at the GOP Christmas party in Illinois, the Illinois GOP. They have a Christmas party every year, and I am going to be keynoting for them this weekend. So if you're local to the area and you're going to get tickets, don't wait too late to get tickets to go to that. The food was amazing last time. Last time I spoke there, I think it was a couple years ago, and we had a really good time. I have a fantastic speech lined up. It's going to be good, and it'll be so nice to meet people in person. And then, of course, tomorrow we have Maj Toure, Black Guns Matter founder. He's a Second Amendment proponent. And Wesley Wildman will be joining us. He's the director of outreach for American Family Association. He's going to come on and talk to us about the Orange Letter campaign. And don't forget that it's open enrollment for Medishare. And if you are struggling with Obamacare, Medishare is the answer. Get on board. You'll hear more about that from us when we have one of their representatives on to explain the entire thing. That's next week. So until then, God bless from the Heartland. Be with you tomorrow.